over the last little while, Arcemise and I have been working on the Gundam SEED Destiny movie reviews, and we were going to try to sum up why we felt that the Gundam SEED Destiny series failed. And now we want to look at this in summary, so hello again, this is Nick Izumi.
And I'm Arcemise.
And we're just going to summarize why we feel that Gundam SEED Destiny failed based on, the videos that we recorded and all of our observations and research that we've done. So, I guess, let's keep going.
Jump right in. When it comes down to the moral of the story, so to speak, like each Gundam has had its own moral to convey. You're more the expert like on original Gundam, and you'd say, what would you say the moral of that would be?
In Universal Century Gundam, it's very much about growing up. It shows war as a bad thing, but it also shows it as something that people grow through. And it's trying to... the original Gundam covers a lot of ideas, but I'd say like the main idea is when you're growing up, you eventually have to stop being selfish, and you have to put value in trying to contribute to your friends and helping them get through life too, not just selfishly focusing on yourself. I guess that's a bit redundant, but you can't just focus on yourself. You have to, work towards something greater. And that comes up over and over again. And we see this again in Zeta, kind of almost the opposite of how the lead character gets so caught up in his own revenge, so to speak, that he loses himself in the process, quite literally.
And I think SEED had a very similar feel as far as the SEED versus the original Gundam. It was very much a story about Kira and Athrun growing up and finding their values, what they believed in, and sticking to them, and their world grew around them.
The thing with SEED is that it came in with 90s Gundam came kind of also the introduction of Gundam going more with kind of, I guess, Japanese mainstream pacifist views, where the original Gundam had that view that war is a bad thing, but officers are still people who need to be listened to in times of war, and there's a place for it. It's a necessary evil. It felt more like SEED was trying to look at this world through a view of war is a terrible thing, but there are ways to work around it. And, if we work towards something, we won't have to keep fighting and being violent. Yeah, I felt like SEED had some really strong themes in that regard.
SEED Destiny, on the other hand, the only moral that I think either of us got out of it, and you've heard us say it many, many times in the reviews, Lacus is God and infallible.
And it's interesting because so much time in SEED is spent on these characters figuring out who they are and what they want to be fighting for. And after that, it's not about who you are or what you're fighting for. That's not portrayed as a good thing in SEED Destiny. Anyone who does not agree with Lacus eventually just becomes the villain. And it's not like that at the beginning. But at the end, that's unquestionably what it's about.
Indeed.
And she's the dictator of the world at the end. That's scary.
Yeah. And people are sheep.
People...
They find something to follow, and they just keep following it.
Like, when Lacus finally confronts the Mir issue, and she interrupts Mir's broadcast, people just file in behind her. But she doesn't, go with what the bigger problem is here. If she wanted to prove she was the real Lacus and she was trying to really address the issue, she wouldn't have said, "I'm Lacus, that means you should listen to me." She would have said something like, "Hi, it's me, the real Lacus, but you can tell it's me because I'm not telling you to do whatever I say. I want you to, look into your heart and ask what you think is the right thing to do." And for a show that's so much about violating Durandal's view of what Destiny should be, it seems so ironic that the main characters are supporting the view from their own stance. Like, it's bad to follow someone unquestioningly unless they, talk about lollipops and sunshine and joy, I guess.
Those are the ones you have to watch out for, kids. And along with that, we already kind of started going into it, but the character arcs in this series, we started out, and you've heard us talk about him, Shin, who's the unlikable protagonist at the beginning. He's not a person that we like, can relate to very well. He is very caught up in his anger. And his story arc goes where that anger is controlling him for the most part, but then he slowly starts realizing that he has power now to fix things, and he makes attempts to do so.
And this is nothing new for Gundam fans. Again, we go back to the original. Camille and Amuro both start out as terrible people. They're just these selfish, dumb, very slap-worthy brats. And throughout the series, they realize the weight of their actions and they become better people because of it. And Shin had the potential to be just like them.
And that's, you can say not exactly like them. It's not a bad thing to be like them. Because those are the interesting story arcs. Those are what people are actually interested in.
And exactly, I don't want a rehash of Amuro and Camille and all of the older pilots, but I want someone who's similarly compelling.
Yeah.
If you're going to follow up a great classic like the original Mobile Suit Gundam, bring your A game to the table.
And we slowly see that Shin really have to face his anger and the actions that he's taken for the military that he's with, what it's requiring of him to do, and right at like the peak moment of his development, he stops.
They just tear him down. And it hurts. It hurts so much because, again, so much potential in his character. When I first watched the show, it was before I had taken up my anti-fan subbing stance, and I was watching it as it came out in Japan. And a lot of people were debating about where the show was going. And in my naivete, I tried defending Shin, saying, well, maybe he'll get better. Just give him time. I didn't want to believe that they were going to turn the protagonist, as I saw it in the show, into such a minor side character. And that's what they did. It's not just that they forget his character arc, it's that they scrap him.
Yeah. And it's depressing. I went with him first because, honestly, I do agree. I think he's the protagonist. Or should have been. Next up would be Athrun, who starts out the series pretty much reverting from what he did in Seed.
And that's interesting because the movies claim that they were trying to show Athrun as their main protagonist, and this last movie did not demonstrate that at all. He's just along for the ride.
Indeed.
And he's just along for the ride for most of it. Everything that he gained at the end of the first series, he forfeits or he forgets about.
He gives up on Kigali in the very beginning, and honestly, we're not sure if he goes back to her.
Mm-hmm.
And
he questions if fighting his dad was the right thing to do. His genocidal, crazy dad.
I wouldn't want to kill my dad if he was Hitler. That just doesn't seem right. But he goes through probably the most frustrating arc. Shin's is right at the top, and it drops down. Athrun we came from a fully developed arc into a bottoming out, up and down.
Yeah, it's very tumultuous, and then he ends up going back to where he was before.
Making the entire trip pointless.
I mean, except the big difference is Kigali's not there with him. But, I mean, essentially he turns back into what he was before. So
through a high five.
Through a high five. That's a head scratcher.
Kira Yamato.
This is the really hard one. Finding Kira's rightful place in this series is a tough thing to think about. And I don't think that the series should have been without him.
True. I think when we initially saw Kira come out with the freedom, I think we can both equally agree that it was, yes, this is going to be great because he's going to be there supporting or helping our protagonist grow. He's going to either be a foil or some kind of obstacle, or he's just going to be there, and by that action it's going to cause our other characters to develop.
And he didn't have to be on the same side as Shin. Exactly. He could be a rival. He could be, they could be at completely opposing angles. But they're interesting. I mean, he is an interesting person to have in all of this.
He's still coming off of a full arc from Seed as well. He doesn't revert like Athrun does at the beginning, so he still starts pretty high up as far as his character goes. And honestly, that could be the problem, is that he stays there. The only...
Kira has no development in this series.
The only troubles he comes across are in specific fights where he has to think of a way to outsmart the guy he's fighting. That is about it. He has no moral qualms that he has to face. He still isn't thinking about, the hundreds of soldiers that have probably died because he only disabled their mechs. He's still self-righteous, and he's still shacking up with Lacus.
And therein lies, I think, the biggest problem with Kira, and comparing him to Shin. This is something I've talked about before, and, with people anyway, but this is my first time recording it, and I just want this out there. Kira and Shin both had important story arcs that neither of them follow through with. For Shin, it was going to war and coming to realize that people are going to die in a war, and he can't keep taking it so personally. And eventually he has to move on and find a way of making things for the better. Because if he just keeps fighting and being violent, it's never going to be resolved.
He's going to keep causing the problems that got him into it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Killing families
And some might argue that him shaking the hand of Kira at the end kind of showed that he learned that. But I don't feel like he learned anything. Because you never have that revelation for him. He's just never is able to come out on top. He's never able to have the important life revelation that a character like him needs. Kira, on the other hand, needed one of those scenes where he could find out that he's wrong now and then. He needed someone like Shin, a good foil like Shin, or even like Athrun, honestly, to say, hey, I know that you're fighting for what you believe in. That's a good thing, but Kira, you're causing the deaths of lots of people too. I still hold Kira more responsible for Heine's death than Stella.
And it comes through in the orders when the Archangel was initially attacked by Zaft after the whole Destroy Gundam event, is that because of their actions, the battles have become much more confused and has led to unnecessary casualties.
These two-way battles turn into three-way battles, and I mean, just him flying around. When you're trying to fight off one enemy, how confusing is it going to be when you know that there's another guy trying to take out your weapons?
And leave you completely defenseless in front of the other enemy.
It's insanity. Kira never has that. And I don't like the fact that he gets off the series completely scot-free and perfect.
Speaking of perfect,
let's move on to Lacus.
Lacus is God.
There is no development for Lacus. She has nothing. She does literally nothing that makes her a better person or a lesser person than what she was before.
She's perfect.
No mistakes, no wrongs, she never questions the way that she does things. She never has, even, an existential moment of, well, I've left the plants, and now they look to replace me. Maybe I should have been there to prevent something like this from happening. No, she's just like, I probably should have seen this coming.
I'm gonna hang out with the kids, my little heroes. My boyfriend will take care of it if anything happens.
Exactly. And we've discussed this, the most important thing they probably could have done with Lacus that might have set Kiro off in an interesting direction. It's terrible. They could have killed her.
Honestly, it would have provided a great conflict within the characters from the last show because she was at the end of her story arc. She had nowhere to go unless you do something completely out of character, like dress her in a ninja outfit. I mean, take a complete nosedive and make her some kind of evil villain. It wouldn't make sense anyway. So the only direction she has left to go is a dead end.
Mm-hmm.
Not to sound callous and evil about it, but as a character, not as a person.
There's nothing left to do with her.
And so then Kigali. This one's also tough because she's in a very similar boat as Athrun, but at the end still gets pushed into the kitchen.
Kigali, everything about her story arc was just pushing her back further and further and further. The spunky mecha pilot who we knew from SEED, the awesome girl who drove around in a jeep fighting Bakus, we only get little glimpses of her.
We start off with her succumbing to the will of the Orb Council after being abandoned by Athrun. He literally takes off and leaves her there to fend for herself. Maybe she's justified in leaving him by the end. I don't know.
I hate to say it, but geez, that made no sense for Athrun.
We get to see her come back once in movie 3.
Yep.
We get to see her get into a suit and actually fight on level with what she was. Which
was welcome, considering that in movie 2, when she's in a suit, all she does is fly around and cry, "Why won't anyone listen to me?"
Character assassination, brought to you by Gundam SEED Destiny.
Kigali is it's tragic what they did with her, because again, there's a lot for her to live up to in trying to establish her father's country, and she never gets a chance to because she's always just sitting around in the Archangel. That's what she's reduced to. It's absolutely pathetic. And the other sad thing is that when we think of lead characters, aside from Shin, everyone that we've listed so far has been,
from SEED,
from the first series. Yeah, the new characters.
Can we talk about Luna? No, because she doesn't have an arc.
Yeah.
She is there, and then she and Shin are together.
We've talked about the newer characters. We talked about Rei and Mir. Most of their development just comes too fast. It's just
at the end.
It's like they had to justify their existence, and they were forgot to tell about them. That was so strange. I guess the character who we could discuss is Durandal.
You mean Emperor Palpatine?
Yes, Gundam Palpatine. What we thought about what they did with him.
He actually is a very good villain.
He's a fantastic villain. I don't know what it is with subpar Gundam shows having good villains.
I don't know either. He is that great political conniving villain where everything he says makes sense. You can't argue with him because the logic he uses makes his views seem logical.
And he sounds like a decent guy. He's always talking about justice and peace and peace justice.
And infinite justice.
No, he didn't make that one.
He didn't make that one, no.
But go ahead.
His arc kind of entails him slowly losing control. I think we can both agree he started out knowing exactly what he wanted, and by the end, just too many things were happening at once, I guess. And
he got the sandwich, took a couple bites, and it was like, yeah, this is good. Then he started biting off more than he could chew. And
it got him killed.
It was such a stupid death. Ray reverting into man-child for no discernible reason.
So that's pretty much what we can cover for characters. There are a few more, but
I don't know even what's left to say.
The movies don't focus on them.
There's so many characters that have the new characters don't really have a whole lot of purpose in being there. A lot of the old characters don't have a lot of purpose in being there.
Oh, well, it felt. Well, let's move on
messy.
to the mechs then. What do we think about SEED Destiny mechs?
I think they're completely unoriginal. I think this is like the lowest point for originality in Gundam mechs.
Agreed.
Where you feel free to start.
Well, first off, we have the Zaku. Got a redesign, got an overhaul, and an acronym that I'm alright with. Then the Goof shows up. Less okay with, but we'll let it slide. Then the Dome shows up. You're not even trying. You just aren't. I know you know a lot more. Gundam X, I believe, is one of the Kira's suits comes from.
Well, there's no verification on it, but I feel like the Strike Gundam, not the Strike Gundam, the Freedom Gundam in original Seed, I feel looks very, very similar to the Double X. In this series, I think my bigger issue is just that none of the hero mechs are original either. Because the Impulse, it's the Freedom with a core block. It's the Strike. I keep getting the Freedom and the Strike mixed up. It's the Strike with a core block system.
And if you've seen Victory Gundam, which would be kind of surprising, honestly.
Yeah.
Not many people have seen that one. But that's the system that they use with the legs, torso, everything.
Amuro uses it a lot in the TV version of Original Gundam. It's one of the reasons I don't recommend the TV version. But you've got that. Then you've got, let's look at the other leads. The Savior Gundam, Athrun had something kind of original there till that thing got scrapped. And he ends up on on Justice again. Kira's on Freedom for most of the show, and then he gets the Strike Freedom, which is almost identical. Then Ray gets Rao's old unit, except it's skinnier this time. But still basically Rao's old unit. There's nothing original about any of the mech designs in this show. The hero mechs, the heroes just get something that looks exactly like their old mech. The upgrades aren't even noteworthy or interesting. It's not like, per se, we could talk about 00 or, even Wing, honestly, where, the lead character gets a mech and it's an upgrade, but you can still recognize it as a separate and kind of different mech. You're not going to mistake the Exia for the 00 anytime soon, for example. I guess Gundam Wing isn't as good an example of this, but the Death Scythe and the Death Scythe Hell, for example, are still different enough that I kind of care.
Yeah.
So just the sheer lack of originality was so blasé. It made it just not interesting. There's nothing to look forward to.
Agreed. And I guess from there we're gonna move on, kind of come out of the story, and move on to more like thoughts we had on the production of the show. Actually, Fukuda worked on this.
Mitsuo Fukuda, who directed the original Gundam Seed.
And didn't do a bad job there. And his wife, wrote that one as well.
They've been a team. And it's interesting. Something I just thought of. I'd like to get it out right now. Is the original ending for Gundam Seed was going to be much darker. Fukuda has talked about this in an interview. I'm relatively sure you can still find that interview pretty easily if you look it up. The original ending of Gundam Seed was going to be much darker. And it seems like he shied away from these darker tones the more he got into Destiny, weirdly enough. Especially with characters coming back left and right. It was kind of silly.
People should stay dead.
The original ending, though, Flay Ulster was going to be a human bomb. That's why Rao was always kind of toying with her, and why he sent her back. Originally, why he was sending her back to the Archangel, was she was going to be a human bomb. When she gets there, Sai, greets her. Everyone's happy to see her, and then she explodes, blowing up the Archangel with her.
That would have been pretty depressing.
Atherin loses his arm in the process of taking out Yakin Due, but Kigali still manages to get out with him alive. Kira dies fighting Rao. That was the original ending of Gundam Seed as it was on paper. Now, they changed that, and I don't know how much of it was to reflect that they wanted to make a sequel, but Fukuda said that he signed on to do Gundam SEED Destiny partly because working on Gundam pays well.
Yeah. For the monies, y'all.
The artistic vision was definitely lacking here.
Yeah. The writing for it is one thing that we often complain about. And complaining about the writing for this is a double-edged sword. And this is how we're going to handle it. It is a fact that when... I forget her name.
I don't remember Mitsuo Fukuda's wife's name. I just call her Mitsuo Fukuda's wife.
When she was writing, she had cancer. So she was in the hospital, writing these scripts for them. And it actually led to a lot of delays in production. And so SEED Destiny itself was just thwart with all sorts of problems related to this. The thing about having a writer that can't consistently be reliable. Nothing against her as a person. Her circumstances are horrible. But honestly, you need to have someone there to write in place of her.
I completely agree with Arcemise. We understand that she was sick. We don't hold that against her. But there should have been other writers on board with it.
And, which is interesting because we looked up, there are 6 other writers, and we just aren't sure what they were doing. The days where they weren't able to get a working script from her, they had flashback episodes. They had recaps.
Destiny holds the record for a number of recap episodes in a Gundam series.
And I think it just, from a business perspective, no disrespect, but you need to have a backup for that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they had one planned, and the show suffered for it.
The show suffered really badly for it, and I know some people would have tried to use the defense that it's not like nowadays the anime we will get things separated into seasons like Code Geass, and then the next in the meta series Gundam 00 got, where they'll get a season break after 25 episodes. But even that, I have trouble. I don't really think of that as a justification, because when Seiji Mizushima was working on Full Metal Alchemist, they just had to keep going for the whole 51 episode run. And despite the fact that Alchemist gets a lot of hate now because there's a new manga accurate version, people were pretty darn happy with the first Full Metal Alchemist series. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I don't see why they couldn't keep up with that.
And also, there are a lot of rumors surrounding the internal turmoil of the production, and we like to just lay these rumors out because they're not confirmed, and so we're not,
we can't emphasize this enough. These are not confirmed.
There have been rumors that the writer did not like Kigali's voice actress, and that her part got cut.
There was, Chiaki Morisawa apparently had a number of issues with. There were rumors of her having. There are rumors of Chiaki Morisawa having issues with voice actors. That included Kigali's actress, Shin's actor, and other such things that led to their parts getting either cut down or simplified. There's not a whole lot of. We don't really have much to go on, though.
So we can't claim those as facts. If you in fact do have a credible source that can prove that those things are true or untrue, feel free to post them in the comments section. We're more than welcome to look into that ourselves.
Translations of new type articles, press releases, something credible.
Yeah.
What we can say for sure is that fans did have a big effect on this show. And unfortunately, the writers ended up submitting to the fans. Now, of course, that may seem ironic coming from us, as we are fans.
It really comes down to which fans are you going to pander to? The guys that make YouTube shows about how much your show sucks, or the ones that probably just post on message boards saying, "Oh, I hate Shin"?
Well, I think they made their choice already quite clear. But at the same time, it's like, as fans, we're fans of your work. And as if Sunrise is listening to this. We're fans of your work because we enjoy what you put out. Not because we enjoy that you do what we tell you to put out.
We don't go looking at professional material expecting to get fan fiction.
Mm-hmm.
That's what fan fiction is for. We go to see what professional writers, professional animators, professionals do. And that's what we want to see. If you make a decision that people aren't wholeheartedly behind, my own opinion is often to stick with it. It is your idea. You do not have to listen to fans as much as you do.
Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, taking fan criticism into input is not a bad thing. I mean, ignoring the fans completely
is equally bad.
But knowing that where to strike that delicate balance is important, and it feels like they didn't. Like, people were reacting harshly to Shin, and Kira suddenly becomes more of the main character. All the old characters become more of the focus all of a sudden.
Yeah, and it was interesting for the modeling market as well, as you're telling me before.
We mentioned this in, I believe, the movie 2 review.
Probably.
There was a lot of really interesting stuff with the early merchandising campaigns were all about Shin. They were about Shin, they were about Zaft, they were about our heroes being the people on the Minerva. You can see it in the second Gundam SEED Destiny opening. You can see it in promotional posters, which were usually, the early promotional posters were usually just the Impulse Gundam with Shin standing in the foreground holding a rifle. All of this early stuff was about our heroes, the Zaft guys. And Athrun, the noble and wise older veteran, yeah. Shin, our younger heroic character. Luna, the
one in the miniskirt.
The one in the miniskirt, the pretty Zaku pilot, and then Rei, the other pretty Zaku pilot.
The other guy.
But you had all this promotional stuff, and then again, when Kira came back onto the scene, there was a lot of this, okay, so, Kira versus Shin. Okay, yeah, because that's a really interesting conflict in the show. And we even said that was an interesting conflict in the show. And promotional material started focusing around that. But eventually it started turning into more and more promotional pictures of Shin just being angry and looking like his mouth is foaming, and Kira looking serene and heroic and
righteous.
And eventually it turned into Kira always looking heroic and righteous, and Shin just kind of falling off into the background.
If on the thing at all.
And I feel like Bandai was confused by this too, because when like toys and model kits were coming out, they tend to put out the hero mechs first. And like the Destiny was coming out in its 144th model, in the MSIA figure. I have that figure. It's a fantastic figure. You know, they're putting out the Destiny Gundam first. And then as the Strike Freedom's coming out, it's like, wait a minute. We have to market the Strike Freedom as the lead character now. And I know like a lot of the early models of the Strike Freedom are pretty subpar, honestly. And they're kind of tooled in a way that if I were working at, this is just me speculating, but if I were working at Bandai, I would have put a lot more effort into a lead character mecha than what a lot of the earlier models had. The first MSIA Strike Freedom, actually, the funnels don't detach.
So, those are kind of our thoughts on the production side of it. It had quite a few problems, and it showed in the show. It affected the quality. And last, we're going to talk about the impact Gundam SEED Destiny has had on the Gundam culture at large.
There was some great music, I guess, will come to mind. TM Revolution got a lot out of it, and a couple of actresses, or singers actually, got their start because of doing Gundam SEED openings. Nami Tamaki, for example, her career completely took off because of her work on the Gundam SEED series. But in Japan, SEED is still really looked favorably upon, SEED Destiny included. I have a couple of exchange student friends, and one of them was shocked that I adore 00 and I don't like SEED Destiny, because that's just over there. 00 doesn't get a whole lot of love, but SEED Destiny, everyone just thinks it's the bee's knees. It's huge over there. I can't figure out why.
We're really not sure. If you have an opinion, again, feel free to post in our comments. We appreciate constructive discussions.
Actually, all my viewers in Japan, because I've been looking at my YouTube Insight, and I see that you guys are out there. Hello. It's really great that you guys are listening and watching. If you could give me some explanation as to why you like SEED Destiny, that'd be so cool. I would love that so much.
We, as you might have guessed, we're doing these videos. It's not because we hate indiscriminately. We are genuinely curious and have thought through this in a very meticulous manner to come to our conclusions. But we are totally open for discussion.
You guys can tell that we love Gundam. I might not love F91. I might not love Destiny. But, I love Gundam. I love the original. I love Zeta. I freaking adore Char's counterattack.
And in America, SEED and SEED Destiny did not do so well. And have not, I think, in general.
It picked up a big enough cult following. The DVDs did alright. But SEED marked the end of Gundam having really its reign on American TV. It definitely marked the end of the Cartoon Network run. Mm-hmm. The original Gundam SEED started out in a really good time slot on Cartoon Network and was moved to a really horrible time slot on Cartoon Network. It was moved from 9 o'clock on Saturday to a much less viewed midnight on Friday.
Yeah.
Much less appealing slot.
And SEED Destiny actually didn't even make it to
But then it did so poorly in Cartoon Network's ratings that SEED Destiny has never had a TV run in America.
And yeah. Gundam is back on Sci-Fi with Gundam 00, but again, I think they've lost a lot of their audience because Seed didn't do so hot on Cartoon Network. I mean, that's where you're gonna get a lot of people interested in this.
The mainstream appeal ended. Now, a part of it is going to go back to earlier stuff like the debacle with Zeta Gundam getting licensed and the confusion that a lot of stores had with buying Zeta Gundam product and never getting it at the stores and them wanting refunds from that. But the Gundam Seed toy line never really took off here in the States. There were only a few figures released. The model kits, doubly so. And when Seed came out, that was the end of Gundam modeling in America. I mean, we have to import our models now. There's no other options. And maybe that was just the residual, after the wing trend fell out. Seed just was unfortunate enough to come at the very tail end of that, and no one was interested at the time. But I do think it's very telling that SEED Destiny has never had a U.S. television release.
Yeah.
And that it has only been a DVD release. It's been a big enough DVD release that, all of the OVAs, including the director's cut ending episode, have been released.
And what's also interesting about SEED Destiny is you look at reviews of DVDs and reviews on Anime News Network, and they'll, generally speaking, they have high ratings. People think really highly of these shows, and for the life of us, we still can't really figure it out.
I don't get it. The first disc I can understand giving that an A+. Other than that, I'm just I don't really see where it's coming from. I'm lost as to this series and what it contributed to the overall Gundam lore. It's an oddity. I still don't understand it, and maybe I never will. And I guess we'll look at the Seed universe, the Cosmic Era timeline. Is there any future for it?
We had Gundam Seed Astray, which took place
alongside the original story.
Okay.
There was also a really cool 45-minute OVA that will probably never get a U.S. release, sadly, called Gundam Seed Stargazer, which is a side story to Destiny about, from the Alliance's perspective, which was a breath of fresh air, about this guy named Sven, who pilots the Strike Noir, which is a really BA machine. And at the same time, his journey is kind of paralleling a scientist and her new stargazing unit. And that's a really cool series, but I'm betting it will never get a release over here. There was talk of a Gundam Seed movie. And the Gundam Seed movie has been in pre-production limbo for a while now. And we heard about it before 00 was even released. With Chiaki Morisawa's cancer, it's very likely we're never going to see that movie. And
yeah.
I'm
kind of okay with that. These movies haven't been that good.
I don't know where it would go. I don't know what you could do aside from
take characters that have already completed their story arcs and revert them.
Which was what Destiny did, so...
Which is why we hated it.
So, if this is the end of the Seed universe, I can't say that I'm going to remember the Destiny part of it fondly. But I can honestly say that I'm glad that I saw the first Gundam Seed. And
Same.
I think it is a good and fun modern homage to the original Gundam, and it is a worthy successor. And if Destiny is just one of those oddities that was a trend of its time, meh.
Then it happened, and yeah. So feel free to leave your comments, of course. Always please be constructive if possible.
And keep enjoying Gundam. from here at Fifth Avenue Studio, as always, reporting on your mecha anime needs. I'm Nick Izumi.
And I am Arcemise.
And we want you to keep on spocking in the free world. Have a good night, everybody.
I can't believe we made it through that. Oh my gosh.
I can't either. I don't know. What do you think? This or Robotech the Masters?
Oh gosh. Masters.